The Reliance Foundation Young Champs Football Academy has been around for less than a decade. But in that time, its graduates have already signed for Hero Indian Super League clubs. The academy, started in 2015, has an aim of nurturing football intelligent players who can take India's football to the next level.
So what we mainly look for are, first of all, football intelligent players. Players who understand the game, have a basic ability to read the game and the ability to find solutions. On top of that, we always look for players who can actually train and play at a high intensity, because we believe that is needed in an elite environment. In addition to that, we expect the kids to have some level of good social abilities. There must be social kids, pretty much. Since they're gonna live in a residential program with 90 other kids, they must be able to adapt themselves and to work and live with others. So that's definitely key for us. Some other things that we look for are resilient players. In other words, players who don't give up easy, who want to work hard, who can work hard. Of course, these are all traits that we can teach them and that we will help them with. But a certain baseline, when they come in with a certain baseline, that helps a lot. So these things are definitely key aspects for us.
First thing is, I also think a lot along the lines of our academy, and that is 100%. So first thing for me is also a player that wants to go full out, tries everything in the game, is not so much focused on the mistakes. The other thing is, I look at players who are engaged and participating in all moments of the game. You don't have to tell a boy he has to attack, he has to defend, or he has to now do a transition. It's just when a player does it by himself, you just see, it is a footballer. He's a footballer there, and hopefully then he's a young champs player. And most importantly, I think the last one, but this is also the first one, is that a player who just enjoys and loves playing football.
The biggest step in the process is identifying and bringing the right talent into the academy. Over the years, RFYC has developed a robust scouting network spanning 18 different regions across India.
So when RFYC started, I think in 2015, RFYC depended a lot on the ISL clubs through Grassroots Festival, where they got talent basically through festivals. And what happened in 2-3 years is RFYC as an academy, we decided to have our own scouting network. Predominantly ISL clubs are all in, of hotspots of football. That's your Kolkata, Kerala, Bangalore, Goa. But we also want to reach out to places like Gujarat, Kashmir, down south, Kanyakumari region, where the coastal belt is there, Hyderabad. So we managed to grow our scouting network from 10 regions to today we are in 18 regions.
To better understand how RFYC scouts players, the challenges they face, and the practices they follow, we covered the entirety of the scouting for the 2023-24 season. This is the story of how RFYC scouts its talents. Every year, RFYC mainly looks for players in the under 14 age group. The scouting is a multi-layered process, with various criteria that need to be met before a player is invited to join the academy. Scouting for RFYC begins well in advance, as the team has a lot of area to cover and a lot of players to scout. To help cast a wider net and to make their scouting process more technical and objective, the academy has partnered with AI Scout, an artificial intelligence-based system that uses video footage to analyze players. It also serves as a tool to further analyze players that have already been watched by the academy's scouts.
AI Scout happened during COVID times, where all on-ground operations were shut and everything was digitalized, right from academics to sports. So that opportunity we as an academy jumped into and tried to expand the scouting network and have access to as many kids as possible. What it does is it takes us to places where our scouts cannot go. And like we discussed that how if I am a talented player, how do I reach out to RFYC? And I think AI Scout also helps in doing so, because the player needs to download that app, fulfill the criteria and fill in the trials, and the trials are recorded. What it has done is, regardless of how talented the child is, how it gives an opportunity for every single child within that age bracket to give it a shot. So it's not only the best of the best, but anyone and everyone who even dreams to be a footballer can give a shot.
Once a player completes the AI trials, the academy arranges on-ground trials in each region to watch the players play live.
What we do is also our regional scouts do is within their region, the states are quite big, the cities are quite big. So for our scouts to cover every particular part of their region, state, city, district is difficult. So that's why it's an 8-month long process, and every scout divides their particular region, city, state in 4 parts. That's north, south, east, west within their city or state. The first layer of scouting is the scout looks at these players and creates a shortlist. So this is a mass talent pool. What he does next is brings all the best of the best or the high potentials together within their state. That's our review session. And if needed, we do 2 review sessions sometimes. So in one of the review sessions, I am there, or in one of the just preliminary rounds of scouting, I am there. So I personally travel with the scout where tournaments are happening, where training sessions are happening. So this also gives me a brief understanding of what's happening in the region and what talent is available out there. So once the review session is done, then we create another shortlist, a shortlist where the kids are invited for the regional camp. And in the regional camp, RFYC coaches along with myself, we go and deliver a high quality young champs session, what the kid is going to closely experience in the final camp or when he joins young champs. So we try to make it a bit complex as well as easy, just to understand in the sessions, are the players coachable first? And then we try to figure out who can perceive information, who is responding to information, and who is enjoying. That's also one of our biggest element. So after the regional camp is done, the whole of the regional camp is recorded. We record all the sessions in every region, and that footage, the video footage, is shared with all the RFYC coaches. That adds another layer to the player coming to the final camp. The coaches go through the footage and they give their feedback to us. And then then we, as a scouting department, we sit together and then create a shortlist who will come for the national camp. Why there is so many layers in scouting is because we want to ensure that the player who comes in is watched 2-3 times. I think that gives a clear indication to us and the scout, and to identify the player's talent. What is his quality?
Throughout the process, the academy prioritizes not just a player's skill level, but also their personality, work ethic, and potential for growth.
Our aim is not to just get a player in for 1 year, hopefully, ideally for a longer term. And then that's fairly easy achievable. But it does, of course, start with scouting the right talents. Scouting players who actually really want to be here, who really have that dream, desire to be here, who already have a baseline of some resilience, some self-regulation. That helps a lot. That definitely helps a lot.
Once a player is scouted and identified as a potential candidate, the academy conducts an in-depth analysis of the player's technical, tactical, and physical abilities. This is done through a series of tests and assessments which are designed to evaluate the player's current strengths and weaknesses in various areas of the game. The performance department of the academy plays a key role here. They conduct a series of physical tests in order to gauge a player's physical prowess as well as their physical potential.
So in terms of scouting, the idea is that we are able to use all the tools we use for our young champs, but we use it in about 4 or 5 days. So what I mean is that throughout the season of the academy, the boys are tested, they're screened, they're monitored. We kind of understand what each age group player looks like. So we kind of try and profile them, we try and understand everything about them that we can, all the controllables that we can. In the scouting camp, what we do is we do that in a snapshot. And it's because what we want to do is throughout the season, we've used certain tools to assess our players over the season. Using those same tools, we kind of have an idea of what we're looking for. We have testing scores that we're looking for, we have movement patterns we're looking for, we have age group benchmarks that we expect the players to look at, and we also know if a certain player falls outside of that benchmark or way above that benchmark, what we need to do as an academy to help them. So we use all the information we get during the year while we work with our players, and then we bring that back to scouting, and we already have an idea of what kind of profiles we're looking for, what kind of patterns we need, and what kind of metrics metrics we're absolutely glued into, which we know will help us develop the players, and we know that those players will then develop in a certain way.
Additionally, RFYC follows a data-driven approach to picking its scholars. To ensure that players are judged equally, the performance department breaks players into bio bands.
So what we want to do is we create something called a bio band, and we assess them within their maturation groups. Players develop based on their environment, right? So some players will, if they're late maturing players, they typically won't use their physicality in their group because they get bullied physically because they're a lot smaller. On the other hand, the physical players might be achieving success because they're just bullying their way through it and may not have the technical or tactical nuance that we look for in the athlete. So what we do with the bio band is create environments that are more in tune with their bio ages, and then we assess them, and it's an opportunity for all players to really shine. So if we've missed someone because of their maturation or because of their physicality, we're able to see that they're coming out in bio band. So what we do is once we have that information, we assess them based on their physiological age.
The Academy also places a strong emphasis on character evaluation with a focus on identifying players who possess the right mindset and attitude to succeed at the highest level. This includes factors such as discipline, work ethic, and sportsmanship.
The most important quality for us would be, for example, the 100%, the commitment. Can a player show us day in, day out that they really want this? Can they work hard in all aspects, on the pitch and off the pitch? Along with that, what we're also looking for is resilience. When they go through some tough situations, are they then able to really fight back? Are they able to pick themselves up again? And lastly, coachability. Are they able to be coached? Are they open to being coached? And also not just by coaches, but also be social with their teammates, so they can take some criticism and learn from that.
Once the physical and psychological tests are completed, it's on to the football. Over the next 5 days, the players are put through multiple training sessions and games, ranging from small-sided games to proper 11v11 matches.
I think the boys are really nervous when they come here for camp. It's really high pressure. Some of them are probably away from home for the first time in their lives, living away. It's a lot. And we just want to make sure that when they're on the pitch, they're able to just be all in. So we engage them, do some fun games, try to really make sure they're forgetting everything outside the pitch and just being on the pitch a little bit more present. And they're kids, they like fun.
So what we wanted to mainly see in this camp is what we like is to provide varied experiences through different types of training sessions, and then also we want to see a lot of players that are adaptable to different phases of the games, and there are players who have different qualities as well. So then the trainings were set up in a way that the first day where we had testing, we had also very basic technical forms, the way you talk about passing, skills, say finishing, and on day 3 and 4 we broke it down more into attack and defense, and then along with it a mix of transitions as well. So that is how the trainings were spread out, to again come back to the point where we wanted the players to experience, have a varied experience and see how the players adapt through these different experiences. Whereas with the games also we try to scale it in the same way. So we started with 4v4 on day 1, going up to 7v7, 9v9, 11v11. So you see players in different formats, in different types of spaces, and then we also try to say break the teams or maybe try different players in certain positions. So you get to see all of these through these different experiences.
While the training and games are on, all the coaches of the academy keep a keen eye on all the scholars. And over the course of the week, the coaches make their recommendations, and together with the data from the performance team, a shortlist is created. One of the key aspects for the academy when selecting its scholars is selecting the right players. RFYC stands firmly against age cheating and does everything in its power to get children into the academy who are at the right age.
Age cheating exists, that we all know, firstly, and we are aware of it, that it's not only from one particular region, it's everywhere. And we try our level best to skim out players or weed out players who we feel are fudging their age. And what we do is simple, that basically I look at on an average 1,000 players with the naked eye every single year. So a first step towards it, or first step of identifying if a player is overage or not the right age, and what we're looking at is their physiological presence.
We have a regional scouting process where we directly collect all information and all data that we can get our hands on: birth certificates, Aadhaar cards, school records. We go the full length when it comes to all the basic records that we can get.
Player information such as which school he studied in, his mark sheets. That's a clear indication of when he was admitted in school. So mark sheets right from their play group school to kindergarten, also if they have records of it, to the current standard where they are in. So the series of mark sheets also gives an indication that when the child was 6 years old, maybe he was in first grade. When the child was 7 years old, he was in second grade. So these are documentation proofs where we can figure out a player is overage or no. The last test is a bone age verification test where we do a TW3 test. We also have an international tied up with international company about Bone Expert. So it's not only TW3 test but Bone Expert also, and we see what results both these tests give us. And again, it's a range. It's not perfect that we get the result, but it gives us an understanding about how old the player is.
Unfortunately, to date, there exists no sort of study or any examination that exists that can accurately tell you whether a player is lying about their age, unfortunately. What we can do is get to the best decision that we can. So everything in isolation is useless, right? So just the birth certificate is useless in isolation. Just the maturation data is useless in isolation. Just the fitness reports are useless in isolation. What we do is, like you said, flag. So if a player, like I said, right, if they're much better, so we've had that, right? We've had players that come into the academy that are much faster than any academy player we've ever had. And we immediately know that player's a talent. So that can happen, but what it can also be is that if that happens, and if there's also a suspicion on the age certificate, and if the maturation says they're really, really high, then you know that there might be something that we need to investigate further.
If we are still not satisfied and we still feel that we want to dig in deep to get information, we send our scouts to the player's house, to the player where he's staying, to get more information about how the player is, how interact with the family, look at childhood photographs so that we are sure about what we are getting into or what the age of the player is.
So while difficult to quantify how much age fraud is holding the sport back, on the flip side, we think we can't overstate how much of a negative impact it is having on development of the sport and us doing better as a footballing country. There's good research and evidence from more developed markets of just the negative impact of the kids who are leaving the sport because they're not getting selected in a program. Now layer on top of that kids who are just not getting selected because there are other children who have a physical advantage over them because they're being dishonest about how old they are. So we feel like this is really a systemic issue that is holding us back a lot, and if as a nation, as a sport and as a fraternity we can collectively work towards at least improving on this front, it might have an outsized impact on what we see on the pitch. Now, having said all of that, we at the academy are convinced that the kids are not at fault. No kid wakes up in the morning and says, I'm going to go through all the steps required to get a fraudulent document to say I'm younger than what I actually am. So unfortunately, I think the fault or the blame lies by and large at the feet of the adults who are encouraging and allowing this to happen and enabling this. And the sad part is that it has become very normalized. That really is the tragic part of age fraud, where everyone just accepts that it's a reality and doesn't really want to take the steps necessary to correct it. What's worked really, really well for us, so we've discussed or we've covered the different steps that we take, but there are still instances where at the final camp, there are some kids who are older than what they've told us, and they've managed to pass through all the checks and balances that we have in place. On the first day of the camp, after the boys are in, we have a meeting, a presentation on what they can expect from the camp. And in that very first formal interaction, we give the kids a space and an opportunity to just come forward separately, discreetly, and tell us honestly if they are in fact overage. What that does is we can evaluate them for how old they actually are. So if we are looking for under 14s in our camp, if they're 15 or 16, we can then look at them and evaluate them as a 15 or a 16-year-old. And we also tell them that if they're honest and forthright and forthcoming, there will be no consequences. So that has actually worked really well for us. I've given that, the last couple of intakes, Steve has been tasked with giving that presentation, but every single year since we started, I've given that presentation, and I have experienced this firsthand where kids have come up to me and said, "Coach," or whatever, "I'm actually older and this is what my true year of birth is." And we say, okay, you can still participate, you can still enjoy yourself, and that proves really effective.
Reliance Foundation Young Champs is unwavering in its mission to find and develop the finest talents of Indian football. The Academy is taking all the steps it can in order to get there. But success for the Academy has always been the overall development of the individual, both on and off the pitch. They have taken a long-term approach and are sowing the seeds today for hopefully a bright footballing future for India.